Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saghana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakam Vitamscha Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnanajana Shilakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhishtam Supurakam Gurganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Shri Rupa Padanugam Govinda Bidam Ujwalam Varatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Baranam Balarka Chelan Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubhanam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishwara Sridharam Vanshakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Namah. So we're hearing from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the hidden treasure of the sweet absolute, with translation and commentary by Srila Bhakti, Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj, and translation to English by Swarupananda Prabhu. So this is chapter 2, Sankhya-yoga, the constitution of the soul. Sanjaya Vasha tam tata kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulekshanam visidantam idam vakyam vacha madhusudana. Sanjaya said, the Supreme Lord Madhusudana then spoke to the saddened Arjuna, whose heart was filled with pity, his eyes brimming with tears. Sanjaya said, the Supreme Lord Madhusudana then spoke to the saddened Arjuna, whose heart was filled with pity, his eyes brimming with tears. Sri Bhagavan uvacha kutastva kashmalam idam vishame samupastitam anarya jushtam asvargyam akirti karamarjuna. The Supreme Lord said, O Arjuna, how has such illusion overcome you at this crucial moment? This does not befit an Aryan, and it does not lead to heaven, but to infamy. So Arya means a spiritual or religious person. And Supreme Lord said, O Arjuna, how has such illusion overcome you at this critical moment, at this crucial moment? This does not befit an Aryan, and it leads not to heaven, but to infamy. Klaibyam masma gama parta naitatvayi upapadyate shudram ridaya durbayam Chaktvo tishta parantapa. O son of Kunti, give up this cowardice, for it does not befit you. O son of Kunti, give up this cowardice, for it does not befit you. O great hero, cast off this petty weakness of heart and arise for battle. Katam bijmam maham Arjuna vacha Katam Bhishma Maham Shankye Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubi Pratiyotshami Pujarhav Varisudana. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, slayer of the enemy, how can I counterattack shooting arrows at venerable Bhishma and my teacher Drona, who are worthy of my worship? Guruna hatva I mahanubhavan Shreyo bhoktum bhaiksham apiya loke Hatvarta kamams tu guruni haiva Bunjiva bhogan rudera pratigdam Guruna hatva I mahanubhavan Shreyo bhaktum bhaiksham apiya loke Hadvarta kamam stu guruni haiva Punjiya bhogan rudera pratigdan. It is better to live in this world and beg without taking the lives of our noble elders and teachers. Otherwise, by killing them, we shall remain in this world only to enjoy their wealth and possessions, tainted with their blood. Na chaitad vidma kataram no garyo yadva jayema yadiva no jayayu yan eva hadva na jihivishamas Tevastita pramuke dhartarashtra. I cannot understand which will be better, victory or defeat. For if we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, who now stand before us on the battlefield, we shall not wish to live. So we can understand that when the Pandavas were in exile and the Kurus were looking for them, at one time the Gandharvas captured the Kurus, and Bhimasena, he was very happy, and he said, well, now we won't have to fight against them. We're going to fight against them with so much cost of men and everything will be spent in this battle, and it is but we have to fight. But if now that the Gandharvas have captured the Kurus, then we're saved from that obligation. But Yudhishthira didn't see it that way. He said, to the rest of the world, we're thinking of ourselves as 5 against 100. But he said, to the rest of the world, we are one dynasty. We are 105. So he didn't see, he told that we have to defend them for the honor of our kingdom. So Arjuna is saying also that by killing them, we shall remain in this world only to enjoy their wealth and possessions tainted with blood. I cannot understand which will be better, victory or defeat. For if we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, who now stand before us in the battlefront, we shall not wish to live. So Arjuna is expressing this sentiment, that if we kill them, it is our obligation to kill them because they are usurping the kingdom, and it should be the obligation of Arjuna and the Pandavas to eliminate these. Like as Prabhupada gives the example of when one is planting rice, sometimes some unwanted weeds grow with the rice. So it is the duty of the person who's the farmer to uproot the unwanted weeds. So in that way, the sons of Dhritarashtra, they're like weeds. They're causing so much commotion by trying to usurp the whole kingdom. So it's the obligation to kill them, but at the same time, Arjuna says that by doing so, we shall not wish to live, because he's seeing it in terms of killing one's own kinsmen. Karpanya dosho bahata svabhava prichami tvam dharma samudacheta yat shreya shan nischitam bruhitan me sishas teham shadi mam tvam brapanam. Now I am bewildered. What is my real duty? I am losing heart and distraught. So please tell me clearly what is the best course of action to take. I am your surrendered disciple. Please instruct me. So elsewhere we hear there's a very unusual situation that's developing because Arjuna is the eternal friend and companion of Krishna, and yet he's with Krishna in Sakya Ras, but now he's saying, I am your surrendered disciple, please instruct me. So he's putting himself whereas Krishna is related with him as his friend, and now he's saying, I'm your disciple, I surrender to you, please instruct me. So it's an unusual situation between friends to develop like that. But of course we know Krishna's the Lord, and I'm sure Arjuna, but Arjuna is saying this not because he's remembering that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, but he's thinking, I cannot overcome this confusion that's in my mind. So you please instruct me, give me some help in this respect. Na I prapashyami mama panujad yadchokam uchoshakram yadchokam uchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatnam ridam rajam suranam apicharipatnyam na hi prapashyami mama panujad yajchokam uchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatnam ridam rajam suranam apicharipatnyam. Even if we gain an unrivaled, flourishing kingdom on earth and sovereignty over heaven, I see nothing to dispel my debilitating grief. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktva rishikesham gudakesha parantapa nayocha iti govindam uktva tushnim babhuva. So Sanjaya said, thus the valiant, vigilant Arjuna spoke to Krishna, who is Rishikesha, the Lord of the senses of all beings. Then he declared, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Here, Krishna is described as Rishikesha, the controller of all the senses, and Arjuna is described as Gudakesha. Gudakesha means who has conquered sleep. Self-controlled Arjuna, the conqueror of sleep. So Arjuna's being overcome. It's not due to he is afraid. It's not due to the fact that he can't control his senses or he's worried. Here it's just simply that Arjuna is very valiant, but he really does not want to engage in this warfare that he knows will result in the destruction of the whole dynasty. Tamuvacha Rishikesha Prahasan Eva Bharata Senayor Ubayor Mandye Vishidantam Idam Vacha. O Bharata, there amidst the armies, Sri Rishikesha O Bharata, there amidst the armies, Sri Rishikesha, smiling, spoke thus to the grief-stricken Arjuna. O Bharata, there amidst the armies, they're between the armies, Sri Rishikesha, smiling, spoke thus to the grief-stricken Arjuna. Shri Bhagavan uvacha asochan anvasochastvam pragyavaram chabasase gatasuna gatasumcha nanushochanti pandita. The Lord said, O Arjuna, you are lamenting for that which is unworthy of grief, yet speaking words of wisdom. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So Arjuna is very carefully explained, delineated his whole argument, why they shouldn't fight, why if they win, everything that they gain will be just tainted with blood, that they'll be killing their own kinsmen. And then he says to Krishna, so you please instruct me. I'm accepting you. I'm accepting your guidance. You please instruct me. I'm your disciple. This is very unusual. But then when he surrenders, immediately Krishna chastises him. Smiling, you can say the Lord is in one sense, making some humor at Arjuna's expense, you might say like that, because Krishna says, oh, you're speaking very nicely. Apparently you're speaking words of wisdom, but you're the wise, you're speaking as if you're a wise man, but the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So you're lamenting, you're feeling so sad for something that's not worthy of your grief. Someone who's wise doesn't look at responsibilities or what one has to do, doesn't look at things with that kind of lamentation. So Krishna immediately chastises Arjuna. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Because ultimately, who is living, who is dead? Everyone's an eternal soul. So Krishna will begin here in this second chapter, this called Sankhya-yoga, or translated as the constitution of the soul. Krishna will speak this wisdom to Arjuna, that what you're looking at and what you're lamenting at is just you're so upset, but you should understand that the wise, they don't lament either for the living or dead, because they are be able to see beyond the so-called parameters of time. They can see beyond what is, the limitations of our vision. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam nime janadipa nachaiva nabhavishyama sarve vayam mataparam. Never was there a time when you, I, or all these kings did not exist. Just as we exist in the present, so have we existed in the past and shall continue to exist in the future. Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipa nachaiva nabhavishyama sarve vayam mataparam. Never was there a time when you, I, or all these kings did not exist. Just as we exist in the present, so have we existed in the past and shall continue to exist in the future. And this verse is a very nice verse because it expresses individuality, that it doesn't speak of an undifferentiated spirituality, but it speaks of you, nor I, nor all these kings. We have always existed, and we've always existed individually, because Krishna is saying, never was a time when I or you or all these kings, we've always existed. So expressed here in the wording in this verse is individuality. The we are individuals, and the Lord is also an individual, and we have our own identity. This is very much different than what the impersonalists will say. They're trying to say that you cannot see individuality. It's because everything is Brahman, and Brahman is undifferentiated. Well, we don't accept that conclusion. That's not our vision. That's not what Krishna is speaking about. And he's saying also the Lord is an individual. So this verse establishes the idea that we are individuals and the Lord is an individual. What is that? Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kamam. That among nityo nityanam, among so many eternal living beings, there is one predominant eternal being. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. Among so many conscious living entities, there is one that is supremely conscious. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kamam. And the distinction is that eko, that one, eko bahunam, is maintaining so many others. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kamam. The one supreme soul, or the Supreme Lord, is maintaining all the individual living entities. Then Krishna continues, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. Dehosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. As the living being passes through the bodily changes of childhood, youth, and old age, it similarly attains another body at death. The wise are not deluded by this. Dehinosmin yata dehe kumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. When someone passes away, when we are having the reading, we read from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita to one's relatives. And this verse always is predominant too, that just as the living entity passes through many bodily changes from childhood, youth, and old age, that it's similarly one attains another body at death. So in other words, what it really says here is we're passing through many bodily changes, and death is also another bodily change. The wise are not deluded by this. Matra sparshas tu konteya shitoshna sukadukada agama payino nityas tamstatiksha shvabharata. O son of Kunti, the engagement of the senses with their objects produces the sensations of cold, heat, pleasure, and pain. But these effects are temporary. They come and go. Therefore, O Bharata, you must endure them. O son of Kunti, the engagement of the senses with their objects produces the sensations of cold, heat, pleasure, and pain. But these effects are temporary. They come and go. Therefore, O Bharata, you must endure them. So this does not mean that we don't need to, when it's the winter, that we don't need to put on a jacket. Or if we're under sweltering heat, we don't need to look for some place in the shade or some place with a breeze to take refuge. But what it also means is that you shouldn't be so much dominated by what is happening with your senses, meeting up with your sense objects. These things, like, dislike, happiness, sadness, so many changes come. There's so many dualities in this world. And you're not always in a position where you can even partially control these things. So what does Krishna say? But these effects are temporary. They come and go. Therefore, O Bharata, you must endure them. We're not saying that you don't have to take precautions if it's cold or hot, but what you may do so many things to alleviate your feeling pain due to so many circumstances in which you find yourself. But you should also understand that these are not permanent conditions. They come and go. Just like on heat and cold. It says, so many people will complain about the weather, but you can't always change the weather. You can't. So when you may have air conditioning, you may get on a plane and go to Tahiti or somewhere else. But ultimately, Krishna is advising that you should endure these conditions. At least you have to understand that we're meant to develop some kind of tolerance. We're not to become so dominated by any condition that happens. Yam ena vyatayanti ete purusham purushar shaba samaduka sukam dhiram somritat vayakalpate. O noblest of men, the wise man who is equipoised in pleasure and pain and undisturbed by sense experiences is alone qualified for immortality. O noblest of men, the wise man who is equipoised in pleasure and pain and undisturbed by sense experiences is alone unqualified for immortality. So all these things are talking about, all these descriptions here are obviously in relation with spiritual understanding, the understanding between difference between body and spirit, soul. The soul is eternal, the body is temporary, the changes which are happening due to the body's contact with the objects of the senses, or the senses contact with the objects of the senses. All these things come and go, and we can say they're teaching one or explaining to one the difference between spirit, eternal spirit, and the temporary conditions of bodily existence. We can say that's also true, but we can also remember that this advice is being directed to Arjuna. And Arjuna is in the most difficult of situations, which he's described very, very deeply in the first chapter and here in the beginning of the second chapter, about he's very much perplexed that he has to fight, he has to engage in warfare, killing even his own relatives and friends, and he's very much troubled by that, as who would not be troubled by that? But at the same time, by explaining the nature of bodily existence and how things are temporary and how one is going through many bodily changes and how one cannot ultimately really lament for people who are dying or have died, because that's happening with everybody. It's happening with all of us. So it's a good explanation, but also we have to remember it's very much directed at Arjuna, because he's in a position which we have to say serve as an instrument in the killing of so many persons. He's a very valiant fighter, and when he engages in fighting, he can so many people will lose their lives at his hands. So when he can do that normally against the enemy, but in this case, this is like a fratricidal, you could say, war going on, and Arjuna's not knowing how to accommodate all this. So, na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, umayor api drishtontas, tvanayos tattvadarshibhi. Of the asat, destructible objects such as immutable body and associated phenomena, there is no eternal existence. Of the sat, eternal object, the soul, there is no destruction or change. The nature of each has been realized by the seers of the truth. Of the asat, destructible objects such as a mutable body and associated paraphernalia, there is no eternal existence. Of the sat, eternal object, the soul, there is no destruction or change. The nature of each has been realized by the seers of the truth. So some of these things that are being described here, we experience just in the course of the transition of time. I remember when I was very young, I always wanted to remain young. And I mean very young. When I was like a child, I wanted to remain a child. I thought that would be good to have some sense of childhood innocence throughout life. But of course, that will never happen. One learns by experience. And they say that the devil learns more by age than by being the devil. That's a Spanish saying. Usually it's said in a negative way, that meaning the devil, he's learned to be very kind of calculating and devil-like more by age than he has by being in the position of being the devil. Position of the devil doesn't necessarily mean that he's qualified to be very mean and like that. But he's learned how to be very cunning and calculating and everything by age. So there are many things that we also learn by age, not always bad, but I mean by age we acquire experience. But in the course of acquiring experience by age, we also learn practically what it is saying here, of the asat, destructible objects such as the mutable body and associated phenomena, there is no eternal existence. And we can see that. I've been talking with Maharaj, and so many people that we knew in the past who I knew very well, and today I can't even hardly remember their names. So many people who were close to me, or I felt close to them in the past, or who I had some relationship with, and things have just gone by. With so many years have gone by, and now in the course of time, I cannot even remember their names. People who I was, when I was young, very close with so many persons. So everything just, with time, everything, you see what is the force of time. We see at the ocean, there are big rocks, very strong rocks that have been just etched away, and they have lines in them and everything, just by the moving of the tide going in and out, tide going in and out. And there are lines even in stone. How can some water put lines in stone? We could say, yes, the water is putting lines in stone, but what is really putting lines in stone? Time, one's age. It is time, one's age is putting lines in stone. And I've seen also pictures, on the web of people that 50, 60 years ago were very beautiful. And now you see their pictures today, and you can't even recognize that it's the same person. Some person is very beautiful and, flowing hair and nice features, and you see the person today and all white-haired, the skin is all, you can see now the person, this is an old person. But it wasn't always an old person. At one time was a very beautiful person, but now everything has changed. So there is no eternal existence of the body and associated paraphernalia. So many things that we may get in terms of that when we got it also, we thought it was very nice, and now somebody asks, what is that? Oh, I don't know, we can throw it away, it's not useful anymore. of the Sat, eternal object, the soul, there is no destruction or change. The nature of each has been realized by the seers of the truth. So those who are actually able to see the truth, they can distinguish between spirit and what is body or material. They can see that difference. Nature of each has been realized by the seers of the truth. Avinashi tu tadvidi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayayasya na kaschit kartum arati. Know that the soul by which the entire body is pervaded is indestructible. No one can destroy the imperishable soul. Know that the soul by which the entire body is pervaded is indestructible. No one can destroy the imperishable soul. So how is the entire body pervaded by the soul? Does that mean the soul is the same size as the body? No, we say the entire body is pervaded by consciousness. And that consciousness is coming from the soul. So by the presence of the soul, the entire body is illuminated by consciousness. No one can destroy the imperishable soul. Bhagavad Gita giving information. Some scholars, some philosophers have talked about this. But the Bhagavad Gita is so complete in its description and knowledge. Antavanta ime deha nityasyokta sharirina anasino prameyasya tasmad yudyashva bharata. Antavanta ime deha nityasyokta sharirina anasino prameyasya tasmad yudyashva Bharata. The soul is said to be eternal, indestructible, and immeasurable. Only these physical bodies are subject to destruction. Therefore, fight, O Bharata. The soul is said to be eternal, indestructible, and immeasurable. Only these physical bodies are subject to destruction. Therefore, fight, O Bharata. And here also Krishna is making a distinction. For instance, in Mayavad philosophy, the impersonalists, they will say that everything we see, everything in this world is illusion, because only spirit exists, and what we are seeing is material. It is just illusion that we see it in that way. In other words, they say that this whole world is unreal. But even if they say it's like a dream, then who is dreaming? Who is doing the dreaming? They don't accept individuality. So they'll say everything is illusion. But how Brahman falls into illusion, that they cannot explain. There's so many weaknesses in their philosophy. We don't say that this world doesn't exist, that it's all illusory. We say what Krishna is describing as the illusion is that you are accepting this temporary body as being your real existence, when your real nature as a soul is eternal, that you're an eternally conscious person. And yet you're thinking that this body that we have, whether young or old, we're thinking this body is our real identity, and that is the illusion. And there is a word, upadhi. Upadhi means something, some false identification. So many upadhis, like my nationality. that I'm thinking I'm from this nation, or other, that I'm whether I'm black or white or Caucasian or Asian, all these things are all related to the body. That's not my real existence. Whether I'm young or old, all these things are called upadis. They're temporary identifications that we make, which is an incorrect identification. So the illusion is not that this world doesn't exist. The illusion is that I'm so much in identification with this world and with this body without knowing really who I am. That's the illusion. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschinam manyate hatam ubayoto na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate. Those who think the living being slays and those who think it is slain are ignorant of the true nature of the soul, for the soul neither slays nor is slain. Those who think the living being slays and those who think it is slain are ignorant of the true nature of the soul, for the soul neither slays nor is slain. So someone can say this is a justification for violence. No, it's not a justification for violence. This is the truth, but one who will try to justify violence and base it on this truth is not understanding what is being said. There are so many things you can take out of context and say that this encourages violence, this encourages warfare. No, that is your interpretation because you don't understand actually what's being described here. So at this point, I'm going to stop. And tomorrow we'll continue. Maharaj? Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopa Govinda Ram Shimadhu Sudana Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohana Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raguna Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Ichai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jaoite Vignana Shabishta Puran Ichai Gosai Jar Mui Tarata Tasabha Pada Renu Mora Panchagram Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Abilas Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilaba Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Gauriya Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamada Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Juki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajaka Charyashta Tara Sarasi Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajaka Charyashta Tara Sarasi Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sadatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Premsi Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavarenya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Madhacharya Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai Shri Ram Mayapur Ki Jai Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Shri Koladvip Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Sripad Bhakti Bandhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai all the assembled devotees Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo